Jews, get out of our country or deal with the Holocaust.
Why are those the only two choices?
It will not be long before the land of Palestine gets back its sons who have been lost for more than 1,000 years. Our good wishes go with them, together with an official goodwill.
By 1935, uniforms for Zion Youth Corps were permitted, the only non-Nazi uniform allowed in Germany. I got the chills, bro. Look at that.
There's always someone reminding Jews, you cannot be like everyone else.
You cannot be like everyone else.
Let's just try to be united. Let's try it. The Jew saw them all, beat them all, and is now what he always was. All things are mortal but the Jew. All other forces pass, but he remains. What is the secret of his immortality?
Okay, listen, enough of that This is a podcast, and we're not going to try to find, we're going to find the solution to anti-Semitism, okay? We're going to stop that right here, right now, from this stinking basement. When we get to the bottom of this, we're going to read from this mystery book, which you're not going to find out about until the end of the series, and we're going to really entertain every perspective. We're not going to say, oh, you can't say this, you can't say that. No, we're going to say everything. Because if we're not going to be able to talk about it, we're not going to be able to solve it. We're going to really grab you in the kishke and we're going to squeeze until we get something, right? Either a bowel movement or a freaking solution. We want to know what happened 3,500 years ago in Babylon that started this whole mishugas. And we want to finish it here in 2020. That's it.
Kurt Tuchler, an active Zionist, was acquainted with several members of the Nazi Party, some of whom were quite senior. Among them was his good friend, Austria-born SS officer Baron Leopold von Mildenstein. To solidify Nazi support for Zionism, Tuchler asked Mildenstein to write favorable newspaper articles about the Zionist enterprise in Palestine. Mildenstein agreed, but stipulated his consent on visiting Palestine and exploring firsthand the Zionist efforts to build a national home for Jews. In April 1933, writes Black, both men and their wives boarded an ocean liner for Palestine. The Nazi Party and the ZVFD, the Zionist Federation of Germany, they each had granted permission for the joint trip. Von Mildenstein, on behalf of the Nazis, approved of what he saw in the kibbutzim in Tel Aviv, and he learned a few Hebrew words. Many photographs were taken. Numerous mementos were dragged back to Germany. An elaborate illustrated series was published about 18 months later in Der Angriff, under the title, quote, A Nazi Travels to Palestine, end quote. Goebbels' newspaper was so proud of the series that a commemorative coin was struck in honor of the voyage. On one side of the coin, a swastika. On the other side of the coin, a Star of David.
That coin is what got me interested in what's going on. It made me want to jump into the rabbit hole and figure out what the heck was going on. How come Jews and Nazis were buddies? What was going on?
Yeah, when I first saw the book and I saw one side of the coin is a Star of David and the other side is a swastika, I said, yeah, same exact question. What?
Right? It made me, as usual, as we say it often here, it made me question the entire narrative that I was brought up on. What was really going on? The point of having some other story happening that shaped those events was very intriguing to me. I think to you too, right? It was a question of, are we missing something? Is there something we could learn? Was it really just a wall of evil that you couldn't do anything against? You could just run away if you can. If not, it will just consume you. Or was there some preparation? Were there warning signs? Is there something we could learn from what happened then that will help us avoid it again now? And not just by commemorating it or hearing stories. I think the Holocaust is one of the most documented genocides on both sides, right? The Nazis did a phenomenal job documenting it, and the survivors did an outstanding job. I think Spielberg, right? He has the largest archive of interviews, pictures, and all that. But did we learn something from it? What did we learn? What was the lesson? Like, what did you learn from the Holocaust set?
Growing up, there was this whole kind of like never again thing. I don't know what happened to that, because it looks like the engine's getting fired up again. So, Leo, I'm in the same boat. I grew up thinking that, just a simple Jew who's just like doing his own thing. He's not meddling in international affairs and trying to destroy anyone. And all of a sudden, these anti-Semites come, and for some reason, which we don't know, they just want to kill the Jews again. And there's a different pattern emerging in this book. This Zionist was friendly with this Nazi, and they went together with their wives to Palestine. On a cruise. Stayed there for a few months, wrote a bunch of articles about it in Goebbels' newspaper.
I want to just, again, off the top, that nobody is confused. It's not that Germans and Jews were really buddies. The Germans had a goal, had a purpose. They were in a really bad place after the World War I, and they needed to come out of it. And they were convinced that Jews were in their way somehow. We know that. We read about it. We talked about it. We talked about that sentiment. They were convinced that moving the Jews out of their land was what they had to do. In fact, when they rose to power, they promised 4 things, right? They would rebuild Germany's economy. They would dismantle its democracy, destroy German Jewry, and establish Aryans as the master race. That was the order of their business at the time. And frankly, nobody was concerned because Hitler seemed to be the best choice back then. He was the only alternative to a communist country in the region. He would build the German economy, pay Germany's debt to the world after World War I. So the money was good. And if he only dealt with the Jews inside the borders, it's his business, right? That was the kind of the laissez-faire attitude of the time. It's clear that the Germans didn't like the Jews, but the fact that there was somehow a way out, that to me was mind-blowing. And Jacob Boas, he published the article in 1980 called "The Nazi Travels to Palestine." And what does he say in the essay?
The possibility of a significant Jewish return to Palestine existed despite Palestine's underdeveloped economic base, provided that, von Mittelstein cautioned, Jews create their own homeland by working their own land. From such a return, concluded von Mittelstein in his final article, not just the Jews, but the entire world would benefit. It points the way to curing centuries-long wound of the body of the world, the Jewish question. So in Palestine, von Mittelstein encountered a Jew that he liked, a Jew who cultivated his own soil, the new Jew. There he saw a Jew who was struggling against great odds to reestablish his roots in the land of his forefathers. Of this Palestinian Jew, von Mittelstein painted a highly flattering portrait. The image of the new Jew projected by von Mittelstein must have left the regular Angriff reader shaking his head in disbelief. The Angriff was the Goebbels newspaper.
That was Goebbels' newspaper. That was one of his propaganda tools. Was
it's
published.
Clear. So Mittelstein was not a friend of the Jews, so to speak.
No, not at all.
Right.
Not at all. He completely took the side of the German party, but he offered a different view on that picture of kill all Jews. It was more like, we got to get them out of this country. Israel is a great place for them, Palestine at the time. Maybe we can send them off.
So he was sympathetic with the Zionist Jews.
So what happened? How come all the Jews in Europe didn't end up in Palestine?
Well, if you came to New York today, we're COVID time, so it's a little weird, but if you came to American Jews who own businesses and told them, guys, it's going to get bad here. We all got to leave now. My family's been here 3 generations already. It's difficult for my dad's generation to think that, this is not our home, that there's somewhere else that's our home. For some reason we have to leave. They've lived through, they didn't live through the World War II. They were born right after it, but they lived through a lot of things. They lived through a lot of economic crises here. Don't think anybody can really comprehend.
That feeling of home that you develop somewhere is not unique just to America. We see it every time throughout history. Jews felt the same in Germany. They felt the same in Spain.
But there's certain people. There's certain people who are comfortable, like you, for example. You left Israel and came to America, right? There's certain people. I know someone who moved to Paris, for example. There's certain people who are comfortable just picking up and they can move. But I think there's like 2 kinds of people. Like my family has been in New Jersey for 3 generations. They started in New York, so they didn't go far, but like within 50 miles for 3 generations. There's other people who pick up and move around, but I think in general, most people kind of stay put. To tell an entire couple million people, it's time to get going. It's a hard pill to swallow.
How can we really do feel kind of comfortable elsewhere? Feel comfortable in any other place but our own place? It's funny, when I got out of the army, the first thing you do when you get out of the army, what do? You get in the plane, you leave Israel. You go to India, you go to South America, you go to Europe, you go to South Africa, Australia, anywhere but there. It's like, where are you going to go now? Anywhere but here. That impulse, I can't even explain it. Like, you really feel like I just want to get out of here. And I guess this is a shared Jewish sentiment, that after being in a place for a while, together with other Jews, the only thing you can think of is just get me out of here. I don't know. It's a strange feeling, but
it reminds me of with batteries, magnets. I mean, when you put two together and they repel each other, it's like there's a force there. Either if you flip it the other way, it sticks together and it holds tight.
The author of this book, I liked it because in this chapter, we hear 4 lines from the author of the book. Maybe you can read that.
The majority of my own family perished in the Holocaust. I grew up with the specter of this genocide, but I never received any answers. Simply, no one seemed to have any. How did the Germans come to this? Was it fate, or could the Holocaust have been avoided? These are 2 of many questions we'll tackle.
Could you avoid another Holocaust? Are we on our way to avoid another Holocaust, or are we on our way to another Holocaust? By the way, because this is sort of like a historic podcast, I think everybody remembers that when the Nazis ran for the government, they didn't get the majority, right? They got 230 voices out of 608 seats, the Nazi party, and Hitler wouldn't make any coalitions with the socialists, with the communists. He didn't want. He really just wanted the power, and eventually in January of 1933 the president, Paul von Hindenburg, eventually exercised emergency powers and appointed Hitler as interim chancellor. And a month later the Germans set to work, and the Reichstag building, which is like the Capitol here in America, the Reichstag basically catches fire. And conveniently, the next morning, the German public was convinced that the fire was in fact, the beginning of a Jewish-backed communist uprising. Hitler demanded and received powers right after that. That's 1933.
Okay, so well before that, the Nazi theoreticians, for example, Alfred Rosenberg, Nazi theoretician, said, let's get them out of here. Zionism must be actively supported to enable us to annually transport a specific number of Jews to Palestine, in any case across our borders. So there was an effort.
Exactly.
So before Hitler came to power, then for at least 10 years, there was a movement to move Jews out of Germany.
Yeah, in 1920, there's a story about Hitler in one of those beer halls. He's making a passionate speech, and someone says something about human rights. Human rights. And Hitler's like, let the Jew look for his human rights where he belongs, in his own state of Palestine. So the thought of moving them out was built into the mindset, into the doctrine. It wasn't, again, kill all Jews right away. It's important to say, we're not saying any of it is right or wrong. We're just trying to find the pattern, find the telltale signs of a looming disaster and avoid it.
Okay, but Leo, why? I mean, look at. But okay, so let's just say everyone is equal in America today. Should you say,
I can't say that, but okay.
I'm saying, should we say that some other ethnic group or everyone from South America, everyone from Guatemala should go back to Guatemala, or they're going to deal with whatever fate befalls them?
Trump kind of said that, didn't he?
Why is the only choice Jews get out of our country or deal with the Holocaust? Why are those the only 2 choices?
Well, I think we're trying to explain it in this podcast by saying that something subconsciously was not. The people had that subconscious rejection, and the theory was that if Jews used that Jew unity, right? If they used that to feed their egos, their natural desires to fulfill themselves, if they use the power of unity to do that, people don't like it. If we use the growing ego as a sort of something to rise above to a greater degree of unity, people like that. People appreciate that. So nobody's saying it, but we're saying it. And I think that that's the only explanation that fits all the events throughout history. I understand that if you look at events in isolation, you may find other circumstantial evidence to say, well, this happened here like this, and this happened here like that. But the one thing that explains it all is this particular pattern of behavior. You want another? Here's another thing. Yeah, read it.
What is less known is that in the eyes of the Nazis, not all Jews were equal. Nazi Germany made clear distinctions between assimilationist Jews who saw Germany as their fatherland and Zionist Jews whose goal was to drive as many Jews as possible out of Germany and into Palestine as part of the efforts to establish a national home for the Jewish people.
There you go. The Nazis came to power. They implemented two opposite policies towards Jews. If you're an assimilationist Jew, if you moved away from, again, not the converting part, not the intermarriage, not that. If you moved away from that ideal of unity, from what intuitively people feel you should be doing, people don't like that. If you move towards Israel, towards that other side of the equation, the symbol of that ideal, of that unity, people like that. And when the Nazis set their mind to it, they really created policies that supported Zionist Jews with the same zeal that they persecuted the assimilationist Jews. They published an article in an army newspaper, the Schwarze Korps, and had in the same day two articles. One said no place for the Jews in the army. In that article, they start by saying, "It will not be long before the land of Palestine gets back its sons who have been lost for more than 1,000 years. Our good wishes go with them, together with an official goodwill."
Hold on.
Really
Hold on.
Yeah.
There was a official weekly newspaper of the propaganda agency of the SS. That was the Schwarze Korps. That's what you're talking about. So in that official weekly SS paper,
which they had to read, everybody had to read.
Okay, so now I just wanted to frame that again. Now, what did it say in that paper?
It says, "It will not be long before the land of Palestine gets back its sons who have been lost for more than 1,000 years, and our good wishes go with them, together with an official goodwill." This is right following von Mildenstein's article.
Leo, nobody knows this history. I mean, the guy wrote this.
It gets worse. Hold on, it gets worse. It gets worse. I'm sad to say. It gets worse. Well, we know how the story ends, but in the middle, there were a few outpoints, and I wonder what would have happened. What if, right? Look at this.
But hold on. Just pause. Let's just pause all history for 1 second. What if the right wingers in America or whoever, the left wingers in America, I don't know, whoever, just said, "All right, Jews, okay, just everybody just get out of here. Just head back to your." Of course, there's a problem now with Israel. The people think it's not. Doesn't belong to Jews either. But let's leave that aside for a minute. But just to say, get out of our country. We're going to get along. Just get out of here. Chinese people, very nice. Virus, don't like. Okay, Chinese people, get out. Or Indian people, thanks for coming. Everybody out. How can you say that to a group of people? I mean, I understand what we're saying here. I understand that if the Nazis...
People are saying it all the time. What's up with you?
Okay, but they're saying it all the time. They're saying it all the time, and we consider it. We don't consider
immoral.
Correct? Yeah, immoral or incorrect, or that's not how you treat another person. So here we're saying.
By the way, who's the one who's saying it's immoral?
Who?
Jews. We say it's immoral.
We say it's immoral to kick someone out.
Yeah, because you hope that everybody just accept all the minorities, including us, and just let us be like everyone else.
It's not something so noble of the Nazis to say, "You listen, either we'll kill you, or you guys can go. And if you go, good luck and inherit your land, and it'll be great for you."
This is a good point to make, because we didn't start reading this book just to kind of get to a point in this book and say, well, the Nazis were actually great people. That's not the point. We want to read further to show, first of all, that the attitude was not as black and white as we think, as we said. That's the point.
That's the point.
Not all Jews were treated the same. If you wanted to leave and be a Zionist, fine. The other kind, the ones that wanted to assimilate, remember we talked about it in the last 3-4 chapters already, the ones who wanted to be like everyone else, to leave their fold and be like, they wouldn't let them. That's the interesting fact. Everyone else in America, Irish, Scottish, Italian, French, fine, you're American. If you're a Jew, you will never be one of us. That's what the Germans said to the Jewish people. And that's what we're questioning here. Mm-hmm. What does it mean? Why in 20th century, after 2,000 years of being in exile and everything, you think that people will just disappear and just dissolve among the nations? No. There's always someone reminding Jews, you cannot be like everyone else.
Look, I have a bit. We're on Zoom right now, talking to each other. I have a big red exclamation point next to that item from when I read this first time.
Well, start from the above it. Just let people read what it is.
All right. Jews are forbidden to fly the Reich or national flag or display Reich colors. The second,
that makes sense.
Okay. Jews did have the privilege that no other minority group in Germany was given, and they had state protection on that. They were permitted to display Jewish colors. The exercise of this right is protected by the state. Those Jewish colors later became the Star of David flag that is today the flag of the State of Israel. But the Nazis did far more than permit Jews to, quote, wave the Jewish flag. The largest and most important Zionist weekly newspaper in Germany at the time, called
The Jewish
Review, was essentially exempt from the so-called uniformity demanded by the Nazi Party of all the other facets of the German society. The Jewish Review was free to preach Zionism as a wholly separate political philosophy. Indeed, the only separate political philosophy sanctioned, endorsed, authorized by the Third Reich. In 1933, Hebrew became an encouraged course in all Jewish schools. By 1935, uniforms for Zion Youth Corps were permitted, the only non-Nazi uniform allowed in Germany. I got the chills, bro. Look at that.
And again, I think it's important to. I keep reminding the listener. It's not to demonstrate how much Nazis loved Zionists.
No.
I think it's to demonstrate how much Nazis feared the Jews who were assimilated, felt that they were part of Nazi society.
We have to say for a second, leave everything, everybody who's listening, just leave everything you know, just stop. Everything, just draw a line. Everything you know, just draw a line. We're talking about above that line, meaning we're not just talking about moving chess pieces around in a board. We're talking about some kind of thread that's running through. You have to go up. You have to zoom out and see the big picture. We're already talking about 2,000 years of the same story. You got to get off the ground and see this from the bird's eye view.
In that Black Corps article, right? They say many Jews who are still fighting with all means against their social and political distancing and regard Germany as their ancestral homeland. To those Jews, the article states, when Germany became a playground for traitors to the fatherland, these organizations, which acted as guardians of inalienable rights, did nothing to stop this disgrace. They always point to the fact that some of them also wore the gray uniform of the German army in World War I. This can be answered that it is not about the role played by Jews in the First World War. It is pointless to offset the number of Jewish front fighters. I read this because it's the same. Remember, we talked about the revolution in Russia, how the same revolutionaries suddenly turned against all their Jewish comrades and leaders, the same guys who led the social justice revolutions in Russia. They turned on them and they forced them out. Same thing happens here. I give my heart and soul. And why is that said? You know why? Here's my theory. Because as those things are happening, they never happen in uniformity among the Jews. We are never united on those issues. Doesn't matter if it's good or bad. Because there's always, for every one of us that joins the revolution, that joins the social justice revolution, that joins the army and fights alongside the people from the country, there's another one of us who has an opposite opinion. So in people's mind, we're always split. You can't trust these people. Who are they? Are they with me or against me? We're never allowed, so to speak, to have our own agency and make our own decisions. No, we're always judged as a collective. That's the weird thing.
I hear from colleagues, why am I always talking about Jew, Jew, Jew? Why do I have to make a separation? Why can't we just be Americans like everyone else? Why do we have to make all these separations between groups? Aren't we all just one humanity? You know, you always talk about love. You always talk about unity. Why are you constantly separating? I'm asking you, why am I doing that?
I think you're trying to preemptively avert the inevitable. That's what you're doing. Because if you look at history, it never worked. Lumping Jews with everyone else, it doesn't work. If it worked, there would be no Israel. There would be no Jews. There would just be people of the world. Even as our friend Seth Rogen said the other day, I don't understand why Israel needs to exist. It's not an understanding you can have with your individual mind. It's a collective thing. It's a symbol of unity. could be a symbol of unity. It's not one right now, which is a whole other discussion.
By any means.
There is no place for Jews anywhere else. I'm not saying it because I wouldn't like to believe it. I relocated here from Israel, brought my family, started a family here. But there is no place for Jews here. It never goes away. I think this might be what we're trying to impress people. Don't wake up in the morning, think today is the day where anti-Semitism is simply going to go away and people are going to just look at us for what we are. How is that Martin Luther King thing? I want my grandkid to look at him and, he's going to be judged not by the color of his eyes, but by his character. With Jews, it never works. Never works. Every other minority group, maybe. Jews, for sure, no. For sure, history shows it doesn't work.
So if we get back inside this book here, the Nazis came to power. People couldn't believe, Jews around the world who knew about what was going on, couldn't believe what was happening. The Jews inside Germany.
It was a shock, right?
Yeah. So on the one hand, it's kind of like today, let's boycott Germany. Boycott them. Right. We're not going to buy powerful Jews all around the world. We're going to shut down, maybe like what's happening in Iran or whatever, just shut them down, no trade in and out. And then there was another group of Jews who said, maybe we can leverage this situation and get the Jews out of there and move them to our own place. And
right. So one group thought that they could actually topple the German government. Let's just be clear on that. It wasn't just simply let's put some pressure on them. It was like, no, Germany is in a dip hole. Remember, after World War I, they can barely pay for anything. Put the BDS on them, as they say, and they just fall. The government will just fall. That will save everyone. The other group said, no, this is not. This is not happening.
The transfer agreement.
Okay, yeah. Let's read that. Let's read about that.
The most unlikely, unacceptable, and some would say immoral deal ever signed, and at the same time, the only measure that Jews took in response to Nazism that actually saved Jewish lives. In the fact, the transfer agreement saved approximately 50,000 German and Austrian Jews. The economic closure imposed on Germany with the outbreak of World War II terminated the agreement in late 1939, a few months after war broke out. Had it not been terminated by the closure, there's no telling how many more Jews would have been saved.
Say a little bit how it worked. I think it was ingenious. That was an example of like real MacGyverism in the face of Nazism. How did it work? It was interesting. It was a partnership between a bank in Palestine and a bank in Germany. And you couldn't take your property and your assets out of Germany. What it is, you deposited your money in that bank. If you're a Jew, deposited money in the bank. The bank went and bought German goods, which the economy needed. And then they went and sold those goods in the Yishuv, in the settlement in Israel. And the profits from that, they gave 43% to the immigrants, right?
Clever
the emigrating Jews.
Figured that out, huh?
Right. Several of them, which was brilliant because everybody won. It was a great situation. But the problem was that while this was happening, the boycott was still going on. Boycott was actually hurting also Jews who had businesses in Germany. Granted, Jews around the world didn't really see the German love of Zionism.
It's crazy. I'm looking at it again. The infrastructure of the land of Israel, of that country, a lot of that original infrastructure here came from German Reichsmarks.
Right, from that plan, yes. From the Nazis.
What kind of story? Like, can we understand, Leo? If you had a novel, right? The character, he wakes up in the morning and everything goes right in his life, and then he finds the love of his life and everything goes perfect, and then they grow old together and everything goes perfect, and then there's no story. This is the greatest drama. We need to see what's going on here. We need to zoom out and see what's going on here. If it's just you wake up every morning and you just face like the day without understanding the big picture, it's missing everything that last 2,000 years is trying to show us.
And once again, that rift between those Jews who supported the transfer agreement and those Jews who supported the boycott was evident. Even the Germans, they were not blind to this unity. As the Secretary of State of the Reich Chancellor expressed it, in spite of its seeming success for the Jews in America too, the boycott is a double-edged sword, moreover on account of economic interests. Leading businessmen among them who have German assets at their disposal have violated it, so that a rift has already developed within American Jewry. Once again, that takes us to the same place. we're not united, even at face value, we hurt ourselves. If we would all unite around this agreement and just transfer Jews out, not holding to those fake ideals, if we saw history for what it is, if we could see the patterns, we'd all unite, take the Jews out. Who knows how many Jews we could have saved, move to Israel, continue this work of unity. But personal interests get in the way.
Right, so you have world Jewry basically boycotting, American Jewry, Polish Jewry, European Jewry boycotting Germany, and then the Jews inside of Germany, it's kind of hurting them because the Germans are then coming down harder on the Jews in Germany.
Yeah, it was not great.
How are we going to unite these people?
I don't know. That's for the next episode. I think we have to close, but I got me riled up.
How are we going to unite these people, Leo?
I don't know. We'll think about it, and we meet here next week, and we try to
no
figure
happy
it out
ending this
together.
episode?
Yes, we are doing it right now. So follow us on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube at The Jew Function. We are the ones who are trying to unite the Jewish people, not for our sake, but to actually see a better world. That's what we believe could happen if we tried it. Let's just try it.
Let's try. It never worked to do everything else. Let's just try to be united. Let's try.
Exactly. All right. Goodbye from Brooklyn.
Bye from Jersey.